Welcome to Theme Deck Tuesday. In this week's video we're going to be having a look at the Rocksteady theme deck featuring a host of different fighting type Pokemon, and as always we will be playing against the ladder to see how it fares against the modern theme decks, but I have also thrown in a match against the Trainer Challenge AI opponent to see how this deck was intended to be played. So if you are new here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content, and let's get into the deck profile. Let's have a brief look at the contents of the Rocksteady deck then. As you can expect with the title of the deck, it is going to be primarily focused on fighting type Pokemon and of course rock and stone type Pokemon, all that good stuff. The main Pokemon and stage 2 Pokemon that we're going to be working towards here is the Rhyperior. It does have this awesome ability which allows you to discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck when you evolve into it, and then has a massive attack here for 4 energy, does 170 damage, and you ignore any effects like weakness and resistance. But you also have the downside that you can't attack during your next turn. We can mitigate this though by using a card like Acerola here. It's one of the few theme decks that has Acerola, a very good healing card, as you can pick up one of your damaged Pokemon and put all cards attached to it into your hand. So you go in, attack with your Rhyperior, then you can Acerola to pick it back up and play it back down, so you get that same effect from the ability, which is excellent. We do also have some other decent attackers in here, like the Lycanroc, for example. It is the main Pokemon on the box, I believe, and it does deal 30 damage for 2, which isn't great, but 100 for 3 is a little bit better. Again, still not great, but it is one of the primary Pokemon in the deck. We do also have some good supporting Pokemon here. For example, the Solrock allows us to draw 2 cards, and also the attack, if we have a Stadium card in play, it deals 40 damage for 1 energy. Very nice and efficient. And then we also have the Meowstic here, which allows us to draw 3 cards, which is pretty nice to get set up overall. And then the secondary attack, if you do have a large hand, you can deal a significant amount of damage with that. Now, going into the trainer cards, it's one of those decks that's a little bit older, and as you can see, the trainer cards are very much lacking, as it has the right idea with the items, but for the supporter cards, we are very much relying on 3 copies of How and 2 copies of Professor Kukui, which isn't going to draw us a huge amount of our deck, but we at the very least do have things like Nest Ball, Timer Ball, and Rescue Stretcher in order to maintain our Pokemon and ensure that we have some attackers to work with. Let's get into a couple of matches with the deck, see how we can get on against the modern decks, and also play against a trainer in the trainer challenge section, which is just against the AI, and we'll see how we can get on against that and if the deck can actually get set up a little bit better, as we do have some good cards overall to work with. Getting into our first game with Rocksteady, we are up against the Zamazenta deck, and they do have the preferred starter of Duraludon. Of course, it is able to attack for 1 energy, so I would certainly call that a preferred starter for sure. We don't have too much going on since we don't have a lot of supporter cards or even trainer cards as a whole in our deck, but we do at least get an energy attachment down. Since we have plenty of those, we can get a fighting energy on our Rhyhorn here, which we're wanting to evolve as quickly as possible. Whether that actually happens is another thing, because my opponent is going to be putting on some pressure here, and they did get the research turn 1, which is going to allow them to discard some of those energies and make it so that they can attach one with the Duraludon. So they got the perfect start, and they did also get the Zamazenta down to attach to that, so they have everything going on that they could possibly need. We'll just continue to attach our Rhyhorn here and hope that we get a supporter card in order to get our Pokemon out. Highly doubt that's going to happen, but we'll see what we can get. My opponent gets a supporter card, the Hop, to draw 3. Really wish we could get that on our side as well. Really could use a How, but we did at least get the potion to survive a little bit longer, and we do top deck another energy here. We do have an attack, the Perplexing Eyes. Defending Pokemon's weakness is now Psychic, so definitely not going to be useful considering it doesn't do any damage. We'll just instead attach the Fighting Energy onto our Rhyhorn once again, and then pass over to my opponent. certainly would have been a useful attack if we were going to be able to deal damage with our Psychic Pokemon, particularly with a Majestic, but that's not going to happen here as we have nothing going for us whatsoever. All we can really do is make use of this escape rope, but even then my opponent has the Zamazenta set up and ready to go, so they will most likely just go into that if we do use the escape rope, and then they can continue to attack us. They also have a bunch of energies in the discard pile here. Do they have any left? No. They have used all of their energies effectively as they were getting good uses out of the Geraldon there. We do top deck the Rhyperior, which is the main thing that we're going for, but we're not going to be able to make use of it as we don't have the stage 1. So instead we'll just have to sacrifice this Esper and use our escape rope plus rescue stretcher combo here. We do have a 4 attack cost on the Rhyperior, so I can attach another energy I suppose, but like I said, we don't have the stage 1, so we're pretty much dead in the water here, as my opponent can just continue to knock us out very easily as we're completely dead drawing him. That is the main problem that we come across time and time again with these older theme decks, is they just do not have enough supporter cards in them in order to consistently get out the Pokemon that you need. Despite the fact that we do have things like Nest Ball and Timer Ball, if we're just not drawing any cards from our deck via supporter cards, then we're not going to be able to draw into those item cards which get our Pokemon out and ultimately get our whole strategy going. So looks like we're going to be losing this one as expected, because I really didn't expect anything else from this deck, but hey, maybe we'll get matched up against a equally powered deck in the next game and then hopefully actually deal some more damage than just 60 damage. But hey, at least we actually did something this game, and sure, we didn't take a prize, but we did get an attack off, and sometimes with these older decks we don't even get to attack, so I'll take that, and we'll move into the next one here as my opponent completely BMs us. But there, they finally take the knockout, just to confirm that they are in fact going to win the game and not just pass over to us. But that is the game. We'll move into our next one. This one we're going to be up against the Soaring Storm deck, so even harder matchup than the last game unfortunately, but my opponent doesn't have an ideal start as they just have the Thunderous and nothing else going on for them, which you'll love to see. We do have a Nest Ball in this hand, which is going to allow us to get down a Rhyhorn nice and early here, try and discard some cards from my opponent's deck, and hopefully get some good attacks off as well. Since we do have the stage 1, kind of makes sense to go with this route. We'll also use a How to draw some cards, and we do get a Rockruff, which is pretty nice. Not the best Rockruff, I'm pretty sure there's another one. Perhaps it's the same one, I can't remember, but there's another Lycanroc deck which I've done a video on before, which is actually a pretty fun deck to play. Not the strongest overall, as your damage is kind of capped in that deck, but it is still a fun deck. Unfortunately, this Lycanroc variant is the worst of the two Lycanroc decks, but we still want to go ahead and try it out, see what we can have, and my opponent is going to be attacking us here for 70 damage as they do get the Tornadus down, which is going to increase their damage there, which is why I didn't bother attaching onto the Tauros, since it does have a 2 attack cost. It's not going to be super optimal to try and attack with that. We do have a potion though that we can make use of, try and get out of range a little bit, and we can continue to attach onto our bench here to ensure that we get a Rhyperior, or at least in the hopes that we do get one, as then we can get some big attacks off with the Rhyperior dealing 170, I believe it is. I'll have to check that, but yeah, it's a lot of damage, definitely enough to get some one-hit knockouts, and of course discarding the top 3 cards on my opponent's deck will be a big deal in order to try and hit some of their key resources, particularly the supporter cards. Maybe some Dragonite get discarded, that would be excellent. My opponent does have the 3rd energy here that they are committing to the Thunderous, which is going to allow them to get the knockout on Tauros here. We could go and attach to the Rockruff with Corner, the defending Pokemon can't retreat, but it's probably not going to be relevant, so we'll just have to sacrifice our Rockruff and continue to attach onto our bench with the hopes that we get a Rhyperior. So here we go, back into our turn. We do get an Esper, which is quite nice. or the Meow Stick that we can go into here, draw 3 cards, or this does 10 damage for each card in your hand. That is pretty lackluster considering we only have a tiny hand. Perhaps if it was counting the cards in my hand and my opponent's hand, it might be useful, but we'll attach a fighting energy once again. And then on the following turn, we can at least use our Meow Stick to draw 3 cards. That could help us out a little bit, try and get a little bit deeper through our deck, since we have only used 1 support card so far. My opponent literally has a Pokemon which can draw them a card every single turn, and we're not even able to find a supporter card every turn, so it just really shows the difference in power level between the modern and slightly older decks, because this isn't even particularly old, it is still the Sun and Moon era, so just last generation, but that's just the way that the theme decks went, and some of them are a lot more powerful than the others. We'll promote our Esper here and go into the Meow Stick. We'd actually get another Esper, not going to be super useful, but hey, if we top deck another Meow Stick, then maybe it will be, but we'll attach our energy and go ahead and draw 3 cards. Looking for a supporter or the Rhyperior. Not going to happen, but we do actually pick up the other Meow Stick here, so I was half joking there that we would get it, but we do actually get the Meow Stick. Unfortunately, it is a psychic cost to draw 3 cards there, but we do have the Soul Rock as well, which can draw 2, but it does require the energy, and also in order to use that we have to have it in the active spot, but we don't have a switch here, so we're going to have to be forced into the Esper, sacrificing it, and then go into the Soul Rock from there, which isn't ideal, as we will be giving our opponent even more prized cards to work with. And here comes the Dragonite as well, so they're going to be able to attach a whole bunch of energy every single turn, total of 3 energy with this Dragonite. Definitely get everything set up that they need, not that they really need anything else, since they have the Thundurus here, which can deal sufficient damage to get a knockout on all of our Pokemon. They could opt to go in with the Tornadus though, since it does have a resistance to fighting, rather than the weakness that the Thundurus has. It definitely makes sense to do that. And they do hit us, of course, for the knockout, dealing 40 damage onto the Dragonite. Probably not going to be super relevant, as that's why they went ahead and put it there. We do get a Nest Ball, which is something that we can play down, I suppose. Do we have any more Esper in the deck? We do indeed, so we could get that if we want to. There's not really any other good attackers that I want right now, so since we have the Meow Stick that we can work with, we'll get another Esper, and we can also attach the fighting onto Soul Rock, pass it over to my opponent, and we are giving them another prize, like I mentioned, but there's really nothing else that we can do here, so we are forced to go into this route. We could have always gone in here, I suppose, and attacked with our Rhydon, dealing a significant amount of damage. We'd have actually got the knockout on the Thundurus, since it does have weakness, but considering my opponent does have the Dragonite, so it would have been very easy for them to get a return knockout, and my Rhydon does have 110 HP, so it would have survived something like the Tornadus, but even the Lantern here does deal 140 damage, so there's a lot of options for my opponent to get a knockout on our Rhydon, whether we're attacked with it or not. So we'll just go in with our Soul Rock instead, try and draw some cards here. We have our Ace of Roller to work with if we need it, if we want to pick something up, but we'll hold on to it for now, and we'll just draw our 2 cards, see if we get our Rhyperior. That is the main goal right now. Try and get into a Rhyperior in order to get one big attack off and take a single prize card with this deck. That is my main goal with any of these old theme decks, is no matter what we're matched up against, the goal is just to take a single prize card, and hopefully we can do that by setting up a Rhyperior. I'm all in on the Rhyperior, but my opponent is doing their thing, going in with the Dragonite, attaching all of their extra energies. They have energies all over the board. They also have the Airmails coming in with Pidgeotto, drawing them a card. Of course, putting another card on the bottom of their deck there from the top. Definitely some good consistency with that. And here comes another knockout, going down to just 1 prize card remaining, so we have to go all in here, hope that we top deck the Rhyperior, off of the Kukui here. We do also top deck the Timer Ball, which could get us it, and of course it's not going to get us it, it's going to get us 2 tails, which is definitely not what we wanted. We do just have another load of absolutely useless cards though, so all we can really do is attach to the active and hit my opponent for 120, which does get the knockout, as they did have to damage themselves, and so just despite the resistance, we are getting the knockout and all of that, so that's at least something. We do take our 1 prize card, but unfortunately it wasn't with our Rhyperior, and of course my opponent does have plenty of means in order to take the knockout here. So we are going to be losing another game with the Rocksteady deck. Really not able to show it off all that well, but that is really just the case with these old theme decks. It doesn't typically go well because you have 0 consistency, you have very few supporter cards, and typically you are drawing the cards that you need, but it is far too late when you are drawing them. Here we have our trainer challenge match, which is going to be against the AI. I've picked a metal deck for us to go against. Didn't realise that they were going to have this Bronzong, which is actually a very good card in the expanded format, but we actually have a pretty reasonable start going second here, as we do have a Nest Ball that we can work with, as well as the Brooklet Hill. Brooklet Hill is going to be a fantastic stadium for getting out our basic fighting Pokemon, so definitely want to put that into play. My opponent did have the stadium turn 1 as well, so hopefully they don't have any more in order to replace our Brooklet Hill. That would be very sad if they did have that. Now I think we'll go for a Rhyhorn very early on here, as we want to try and get our Rhyperior set up. And we can also use the Brooklet Hill in order to search out another Pokemon, possibly just the Sock, although I suppose the Solrock is also a very good attacker, so let's get that down and also attach to something. I think we'll go with the Rhyhorn for now, pass it over to my opponent, and then we have the Meowstic on this following turn, which is going to allow us to draw 3 cards here, although my opponent does have an attack. Flipping Tails means that they're not going to be able to deal any damage, which is very good for us, as we don't want them dealing damage, but we do have the evolution here on our Rhyhorn, as well as a Meowstic that we can work with, attach onto there, and use our Brooklet Hill to get out another basic fighting Pokemon. And then we'll just get a Sock this time, nothing else that we really want, maybe just a another Rhyhorn, so that we can get a second Rhyperior out at some point. That would be potentially good, but drawing 3 cards here, we don't get anything particularly useful. My opponent can hit us for a big 60 damage. We do have a potion though that we can use to heal some of that damage off. Definitely go for that. And we do get another evolution here, the Rhydon, so that'll be good if we get the second Rhyhorn out here. It would definitely be helpful if we can get that down. We do have another one in the deck, so let's go there. And we could also attach active and deal some damage, but my opponent is resistant to psychic, so that doesn't seem like a very good idea. We'll just go ahead and attach to the bench and once again draw 3 cards, hoping that we can get into a Rhyperior here, but doesn't look like that's going to be the case just yet. We do get the Lycanroc though, but as I mentioned in the deck profile, the attacks aren't the greatest on there. My opponent has played out their hand though, so they're also in a similar situation where they're not able to draw a whole lot of cards or find any supporter cards. We'll promote our Solrock so that we can continue to draw, and we do also have the Kukui. We could actually do some significant damage here while we can with the Solrock, so that kind of makes sense, and I like the idea of that. We can also get a second one out of the deck. So let's Professor Kukui here, see what we draw. We do get the How, which is very nice for the following turn, and we will attack here for a big 60 damage, which is pretty good since we did get the Professor Kukui there. And we can then hit my opponent again the following turn for 40, which will get the knockout since they do just have 20 HP remaining. They're not going to be able to get a return knockout as well, which is very nice. We have a Timer Ball, which I'll go for first here. Looking for some Rhyperior. We do get 1 head, I'll take that. Definitely a good shout. Just want to check what other cards we have available here and just make sure that everything is kind of in the deck and in place really. We do have our Lucario that we could potentially use at some point, but the main focus is definitely getting this Rhyperior into play here. Yes, we want to use the ability, discard those cards. Let's see what we just discarded, and we got rid of a Bronzor and a Metal Energy. Not too amazing since they do have the Bronzong in play here, which means that they can get that energy into play. We do also have the How, of course, that we can use. Wishful Baton, very nice card to draw into here. Going to be using that for sure on our bench. Can hold off for now though, there's no real rush to use that. And we'll just get the first knockout on our end here. And definitely put us in a good spot since we do have the Rhyperior now. So we can look to use that as an attacker. And then use our Acerola in order to pick it up if we need to. My opponent does get a supporter card on their end using that Professor Birch. Getting a Tails though, so they only get to draw 4 cards, and they are able to deal enough damage in order to get the knockout as well. So we're going to be forced into an attacker here. I think we'll go in with our Rhyperior. We could also attach the Wishful Baton just in case my opponent finds a way to get the knockout. And is there anything else that we want to do here? Perhaps get a basic out of the deck with the Brooklet Hill. Just go for the Riola so that we can then get the Lucario out at some point. But we have nothing else left to do here, so we'll just get the big knockout. 170 absolutely obliterates any Pokemon in the path of Rhyperior, which is definitely what we want to see here. And unfortunately we can't attack on this following turn, but Rhyperior is a big Pokemon. It does have 160 HP, which is pretty substantial for a Stage 2 Pokemon, especially during the era that it came out at. There's certainly some Stage 2 Pokemon currently in the Sword and Shield era that don't even have 160 HP, so definitely a good amount to be at there. But my opponent's Bronzong definitely putting in work for them to ensure that they have those metal energies in play still. We do get a energy retrieval, which is a nice pickup. We'll get that to ensure that we have some extra energies in play here. And we can also start attaching some of these onto our board. I think we'll put some onto the Riola here in case we do get the opportunity to use our Lucario. And just to confirm, we can see that we can't attack with our Rhyperior. We can only retreat it, so we'll pass over to my opponent and see what they have for us. They do have another Professor Birch, getting a Tails again, so just 4 cards for them. Definitely helpful, ensuring that they have a low hand size. They get another Hard Charm as well, not putting it onto the active, but it's not really going to matter where they put it because our Rhyperior is doing so much damage they can't really reduce the damage there. And we'll just attach an energy again, once again going for the attack, getting a big knockout and taking another prize card. So this is definitely a much better feeling. This is how the deck is supposed to operate. You get those Rhyperiors down, or whatever attacker you can get down really. If you need to get down the Lucario instead, then that's definitely a good option, but getting down the Rhyperior is going to be the main one, and being able to use it over and over is going to be ideal. We do also pick up an escape rope here, which could be good in order to switch out so we can attack with our Rhyperior once again. We do just have to find a retreat though. I mean, this Riola does have a 1 retreat cost, so I don't feel too bad about promoting that. It does force up a different Pokemon from my opponent so that we can attack with our Rhyperior, since we do have to reset the attack there in order to use it, since we did use it the last turn. But at the very least it does mean that we get another knockout. We'll do also find another timer ball here, getting a heads, so we can pick out our Lucario from the deck. We unfortunately have prized our second Rhyperior, but that's alright. We'll just hold on to the Lucario for now, and we'll go in and attack my opponent, getting another knockout, going down to 2 prize cards remaining. And that's definitely where we want to be at here. We take another prize card, we get a Rockruff, not really something that I'm too bothered about getting into play. And we'll see my opponent most likely just attack with this Bronzong once again. Now we could go in here and use our Acerola just to show off that we can use all of these different tools at our disposal. And we do also have the Lucario, so let's go for this big play. We'll put down the fighting energy here, use our Acerola to pick up our active Rhyperior so that it doesn't get knocked out. we get to promote our Riolu, evolve into Lucario, which is going to make it invincible for this following turn as well, which is very nice. And then we can try to find this Rhyperior, which is going to go into play here. And yep, here it is. Get this Rhyperior down, discard another 3 cards from the top of my opponent's deck. Definitely very helpful. And then we'll go ahead and Wishful Baton and just play out the rest of our hand so that we can get the Rhyperior down again. And we have already attached, so we can just go for the knockout here. 120 is going to be sufficient. Even with the reduction there, 100 is sufficient to knock out a Bronzong. And of course, we are invincible during this turn because of the ability that we were able to activate on our Lucario, which does ensure that we win the game on this following turn, as we're dealing enough damage to knock out any of my opponent's Pokemon. And that is pretty much how the deck is supposed to run. It runs very smoothly if you just have about 10 turns to actually get set up, but as you can see, it is very nice and fun to play if you can get going. So that is maybe something that I'll continue to do in the future, just go against the AI in order to show off some of these older decks and actually get set up with them, and it'll be a bit more equal playing fields for them. But certainly doesn't stand up against the modern decks, but that's alright, as we've showed off the deck nice and effectively against the AI. I've been That Scottish Nerd, and I'll see you in the next video.